morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on the Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering current events on this Thursday. And today we're looking at a topic: the problem with taking a clown show seriously. The problem with taking a clown show seriously. This is our talk for today. So welcome again. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of your word in this day. Pray, dear Lord, you may be with us as we study together and as I present these thoughts. May you bless those that are here and those that are on, those that are online, and may you be with us. We pray for Christ's sake. Amen. So I'm looking at this topic here: the problem with taking a clown show seriously, and I'm looking at current events as I continue my theme for this week, which is the church in the past and now. So this is something that has happened historically and is happening now, has moved away from morality. Morality has stopped being preached in the church, and it seems nobody noticed. And so, whenever you have morality removed, when you have righteousness and judgment removed from the church, from the teaching, from the idea of what it means to be a religious, a Christian, then what you really have is, to me, an act and what I call a clown show, because it's going to end up that clowns are running the system, and the people who are following the clowns are going to get into some serious problems. So there is a problem with taking what I classified as a clown show, and I'll clarify in a second, seriously, that it end up in bad results for those who are following the clown. And this is what I'm going to be talking about. So anyhow, so the church in the past, so this has been something that happened over and over again. Morality gets removed from the church, it gets removed from society. And as morality get removed, then what end up happening is that you really have a show, an act. But the act is going to end in tragedy, not in a comedy. Our main text has been Matthew chapter 7, verse 9 onwards. Matthew 7, verse 9. And it says, or what is there of you, or what man is there of you, whom if his son asks him bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he asks him a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask? Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. So the golden rule is do unto others as you like them to do unto you. The law and the prophets is whatsoever things that you want men to do to you, do to them. So as I said before, the teachings here of Christ is probably one of the most, or the most important teaching in the Bible. And the reason for this is because what you're dealing with here is not what you want people to do to you. Not what people should do to you, but what you would want them to do to you. That's how you do to them. So, and the more you treat yourself good and you give good gifts to yourself, then you should know how to give good gifts or bless people. And so, what would you want? And this is where current events becomes real fascinating. So anyhow, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which lead unto life, and few there be that find it. So when we talk about the narrow way, we're talking about the narrow way because of this one issue, to me here, the issue of morality. So my point for today, which I want to talk to you about when we talk about current events, what's going on in the news and what's going on in our world and what's going on in our personal life and our family lives, is that if there is no morality, justice, or judgment, it is an act. So if there is no morality, justice, or judgment, it's an act. It's an act, and I really call the act a clown show. There's clowns acting. And the clown is acting, and probably the clown is a drunk. Probably the clown has some drug problem, but he's supposed to make you happy. But yet the clown is depressed. That's the whole concept sometimes you get from a clown. Clowns is that they probably live not the best lives, and they're always on the road, and the whole concept with the background of how the clown is living. But the clown's supposed to come out and put on an act, a show to make everybody happy and make the kids happy. But if the kids understood the lifestyle of the clown, the kids would be very sad and would want the clown to live a better life. And so when people are acting and they're really acting what it is they're doing, they're putting on a clown show because they're pretending like they're happy or they're whatever they're standing for, but they really don't stand for that. This is not really their narrative. So if there is no morality, no justice, somebody preaching the gospel or saying they stand for the Constitution, that would be in a secular environment or political environment, but they really everything they do is anti-constitutional, then it will end bad because it's really a clown show. And you can find in the political realm a lot of people will talk about, oh, I'm pro-constitution, I'm pro this, but when you really check it out, everything that they do and say and the things they vote for is really anti-constitutional. But that tells you that, to me, that tells you that it's a clown show. They're being a clown because their life does not, their life and the things that they do and decisions they make and what they vote for does not align with what they claim they are. And it's the same thing in a church environment, the religious leaders, that they will be there preaching all kind of stuff, but you're not finding that their lives or even their preaching is anything to do with morality, justice, or judgment. And so when this is removed, really what you have is an act. They're just acting, right? They just do, some are just better actors than others, and some they're just terrible actors. And that's part of life and theater anyhow. So it is going to go south for the clowns and their followers. And you see this all the time whenever you have these cult leaders or you have these religious leaders. As I say, some of you look at the poorest areas in the country is the areas that the religious leaders are actors and the political leaders are actors, and the people suffer for it because really what you have is a clown show. And that's the reality of what we deal with. So notice here that it will go south for the clowns and their followers who are being pillaged. This is one of the things I want to talk to you about, which is really the current events. I could call this, when it's a clown show, the followers of the clown is going to be pillaged by the clown because the clown is there to rip them off. But they think they have everyone fooled. And the clowns seem to have lost their belief that God will punish them and their believers. And I see this all the time. Recently there's in the church, there's a well-known pastor. I didn't follow him myself, but there's a lot of people who followed him. And he crashed and burned because this pastor was, I guess, a big-time preacher, but he was not a moral person. And he crashed and burned, and then he died recently, and they buried him. But to me, that was a clown show. But people took the clown show seriously. And I used to hear him preach, and I'm thinking, this clown is not serious. Because there's no morality and justice and judgment in his preaching. He's just a good orator, or he has a good elocution, or he has good stagecraft. But that was about it. This was an act. But for years, I'm like, this guy's a clown, and he wasn't funny. So not that he's funny. He was just a clown. But people took him serious. I know a lot of people took him serious, and he went down, and the people who followed him, they had a great disappointment. Great disappointment. That's classic. That's a clown talk. So this is what happened, and you see this over and over again, and you be like, why are they disappointed? How can you have a person who is a moral preacher? They're supposed to be preaching morality, but there's absence of morality, the absence of justice and judgment. But they're preaching, and somebody believe that there's not going to be a beatdown because you're dealing with a clown. But the clown followers, I guess they're just mesmerized by the red nose and the big shoes and the makeup on the face of the clown. So they think that the clown is real, but it's a clown. Matthew chapter 15, verse 12 through 14. Matthew 15, verse 12 through 14. Then came his disciples and said unto him, knowest thou that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? So obviously, if you follow these clowns and you hear me say that, you'll be offended too, right? Because you're supposed to be, you would be, right? If you're taking a clown serious and you say, you take your child to the three-ring circus and the clown is performing, and I say, it's a clown, why you take your child to the stupidity? This guy here is probably a drunk and stuff like that. You would be offended, right? And I shouldn't do that because I should make you make the child enjoy their childhood. So when they grow up to a nightmare, and they didn't know that the parent didn't teach them right. But anyhow, so if you go there, right, and you're in that clown show and you really enjoying the clown show, you don't want somebody to tell you that the clowns are real. So when Christ talked about the Pharisees, he says that the 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 people were offended because imagine he's calling these Pharisees clowns. He's saying they're hypocrites. A hypocrite, as you know, is an actor, and I'll get into that in a second, as you see there on my notes. So a hypocrite is somebody that's doing an act. And so here Christ was talking about the Pharisees, and he's like, these guys are clowns. He didn't use those words, but I don't know if they had clowns. They had probably mimes or something like that. They are hypocrites in his time, but I don't know if they had the word clown. So I don't know if he thought about them like that. But for me, I just see them as clowns. They just don't wear the nose, the red nose, unlike Rudolph. So notice here, verse 13. But he answered and said, so I'll read it again. Then came his disciples and said unto him, knowest that the Pharisees were offended after they heard thy saying? Of course, clown's going to be offended by this. But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. So this is why I'm saying is that the clowns are pillaging their members and their constituents, if you were in politics, and fool them and make them believe that they're for them. I don't know how these people believe these clowns are for them, but wide is the gate. I know, broad is the way. And they're going to pillage them, but in their mind, they think that there's something good going on here. And all that's going to happen is that there's a clown show and the blind following the clown. And because there's a lot of blind people following a blind clown, the trick of this is that the clown don't, because I guess he stopped believing in God, don't believe that he's going to fall into a ditch. And the blind people don't realize that he's leading them into a ditch. You didn't get that one. And this you see in politics, and this you see in religion. Because it's an act. They're not straight. And so the blind is following the blind. And what do you think gonna happen? At least here they translated ditch. It's better to say the blind gonna lead them off the cliff. And as the blind go down the cliff first, and he leads his followers down. And you see this over and over again. And you be like, what is in it while they're following this clown? And you realize, well, yeah, I know what it is. They're like an act. Because everybody likes a good act, right? It's good to see somebody acting something that is not real, because people are so in need of an act. You get what I'm saying? It's like their life is not going on for them in their life. And they need somebody to pretend, because since everybody's a mess, I guess, not everybody, but a lot of people, they need at least somebody to pretend for them that this is really real. But if the blind, I read it again, let them alone. These people were offended because Christ is talking truth. They be blind that leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. So when you have this situation, you find that this is the reality in life. And this is what makes our current events. How often you read stories in the news, or you see in some religious news, you hear about some great preacher, quote unquote great preacher, that crash and burn. And you'd be like, that person was humped up, I think, on drugs. What are they talking about? And these people are following this person. Are you thinking this is one of these great preachers? That's weird. And then now you see it in the political spectrum, and you'll be like, what did they think was going to come off that person? This person was an act. He's a hypocrite. And the hypocrite basically led their followers down the ditch, and ain't nothing good going to come off it. As I say, you look at some states, they never rose from slavery. The only time people had money, not the main people that was doing the wickedness had money. The leaders was 100 years ago, and 100 years later, they still can't rise. You say, what happened? Because they're following blind leaders, and the blind leaders quote unquote, tell them that they're patriotic and they believe in the Constitution and all that. And all the leaders is doing is just lead them into the ditch. And they've been in a ditch for 100 years. And they think one day they're going to come out. So every now and then a person, another carpetbagger or some city slicker come and trick them up. And they believe it. And they believe that this is going to be hit. And nah, it's, it's people pretentious as fake. So when we talk about a clown, we're talking about an actor, right? Somebody that's acting that they're happy, and they dare to act as if they're happy, so that the kids can feel good. So can make the kids happy. You can tie a little, what they call it, like they tie a balloon and create a little dog, and you'd be like, oh, they make the kids happy. It's a clown, a hypocrite. So a hypocrite is really an actor. So a hypocrite is a person who pretends to have virtues or qualities that he or she does not have. That's a hypocrite. So it's a pretense, right? The person is in a show. So that's why I say you look at a clown. The clown's supposed to be happy, but to truth in the fact, the parents are bringing the child to be entertained by a clown, and probably most of the time the parents are happier than the clown. But the clown knows to act as if they're happy, and it makes the kids feel good inside. Scary movies, right? So a hypocrite is a person who pretend to have virtues, so good qualities, and qualities that he or she does not have. This is a pretense. So how do you think that's going to end? Because people really say, well, it made me feel good. Sure, but it's going to end bad. A person whose action, that's a hypocrite now again, a person whose action contradict their stated belief or feelings. So how do I feel about something? What do I believe? But does my action go along with it? So as I said to you here, last few weeks, doing this thing was doing a morning program, to hustle a little bit to try to get going. Normally my alarm goes off at 5, but probably I get up at 5:30. But anyhow, so just because I was doing some juicing and raw and stuff like that. But this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Because I'm supposed to be into health. But if my action is, I was actually couldn't wake up because I was eating all kind of fast food and stuff like that, then you would say my actions betray my beliefs, stated beliefs. So a hypocrite is a person whose actions contradict their stated beliefs and feeling. So if you're following, whether it be in a secular realm or religious realm, a leader that is an actor, don't believe that there's not going to be no negative with that clown show, because the clown, who is a pretender, going to lead you in a ditch. But most people don't see that. That's what current events is often. When you hear about some of these big spectacular crash and burn, where you realize the person was living a lifestyle that's different from what they stated. You anti-abortion, but you getting pregnant women and you're telling the women, paying the women to go get an abortion. It's, how you've seen those stories. And then you say, wait, I thought this person was anti-abortion. You're anti-gay, and then somebody spot you in a gay bar. And you'd be like, wait a minute, but isn't this, you can imagine the person thinking, wait a minute, but isn't this person supposed to be anti-gay, anti-homosexual? And then now the person crash and burn. How many politicians have been taken out like that? Because they've moral and virtue, or pastors who are preaching against fornication, and next they're spotted with a whore, a prostitute. And you say, wait a minute, but isn't this person, but you look at the person and you say, wait a minute, this person was an actor. And it always going to be painful, because there's going to be a crash and burn. And I can't remember who it was, but there was a preacher that something like that happened to. And in the end, when he would do his broadcast from his Coliseum, because it got emptied out after he got found out that he used like a black cloth and just black out a section of the Coliseum. So when the camera is shooting down, you think it's full, but what it is that, like, to the left is blacked out by black, and then to the right is blacked out by black. So it just looked like the auditorium has shrunk. That was a good move, I think. So that part was real. That wasn't an act. So you see this and you say, but you're watching the person, you're thinking this person is an actor, and people take them serious. And so when the burn come, it's just it's a crash and burn because it's fake. A person, a hypocrite is a person who pretend to have virtues and morals or religious beliefs and or principles similar that they do not actually possess, especially a person whose actions contradicts or belie, I think let's say, I can't remember how to say that, stated belief. So the person's actions, the person is doing stuff, and then the people who follow the person have to swallow what they're doing. And I've seen this before, you've seen this before. And what I mean swallow is like you say to the person will say, yeah, I see the pastor doing this, or I see the political leader do this, but they swallow it. And they're like, oh man, okay, I have to swallow that to follow them. In the Old Testament, the prophet is Ezekiel, sorry, the prophet Ezekiel says that you have to put a branch, or is it Jeremiah? One of them, they have to put a branch to your nose. That means the stench is so high that you have to get like a peppermint or something, and to get something smell to get the scent out of your nose, because it smell is reeking and shrieking with stench. And that's what you call a hypocrite, the person contradicting by their actions. But the followers is going to get a beat down, and they're getting a beat down, but they have to say some statement like don't judge, and they go through all these type of mental gymnastics to not disconnect from the hypocrite. A hypocrite is a person who feigns some desirable or public approval, publicly approved attitude, especially one whose private life, opinions, and stated beliefs, statements are contradict or belie, I don't know how you say that, their public statements. So it contradicts their public statement. So they're saying something in public, but in private they're doing something else. Revelation 22, verse 14 and 15, we read again, it says here, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. So we hear a pastor always attacking the commandments. That's an actor. That's always a fake. Trying to be a religious. Okay, be a religious. The Bible is so clear. Okay, be a religious person. But you go into church and people attack this all day. This text, hypocrites and wicked people, they hate this text. Why? Because it's just too clear. Somebody say, oh, but we're saved by grace. Yeah, but we do it this text and so many texts in the Bible. That's a simple state. You're saved by grace, sure. But it's just something that if those who do the commandments of God are blessed. So you're saved. So you're saved to keep. But you have preachers preaching that. So to me, if publicly the preacher is telling you that I'm a religious person, I'm a man of God, anointed by the Lord, by the Holy Spirit, and I'm here to preach to you, but you shouldn't keep the commandments. The person is telling you that they're a clown. How can they tell you that they're a clown and then people follow them? And then they don't think that the followers don't think they're going to get a whipping? Followers going to get a whipping because you're supporting evil. You're supporting a clown, a hypocrite, an actor. So blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right, may have right. So they have a right. See, they don't like those type of statements because they're clowns. They think they have an act and they think they fool God, and God is taking care of them. He's not going to, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without our dogs and sorcerers, whoremongers. Some people believe that word dog there is a male prostitute, a person who sell basically their anus and their mouth for money, sexually for money. So without our dogs and sorcerers, whoremongers, that's the people who buy the whores, and could even be the pimps and stuff, the whole shebang, and murderers, idolaters, and whosoever loveth and make it a lie. So I'm back here for this because this is where I'm going. Because to me, a clown is a person who is acting, is a hypocrite. And a lot of clowns probably could be pastors also. And that's a fact. Because they're clowns and they could be, that's what they should do. Just test me on that and take a literally professional clown and make him either run a church or make him be a politician, run for office. I probably think he would do good because this is somebody that all their life they know to act. And I think you could probably convert a clown. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, I would like somebody to try that. Like, literally get a clown and say, listen, officially what I did for a living, I'm a clown. Officially. Like, go to circus. I think the Bailey Barnum and circus train is back in business. And then there's Circle the Cell or something like that. In Las Vegas, I think I have a lot of professional clowns. Just go over there, get one of those clowns, and say, "I'm gonna make you be a pastor of a church, or I'm gonna get you to run for office." And I suspect that clown, you teach him the lines and what to say and what to make people feel good, and I think that clown could win office, because you look at these people talking. Sometimes, listen, I sometimes watch some of these senators and Congress talking. I just burst out start laughing because they I know they have the people fooled, and it's just they're clowns, but they know how to talk. So I think you could get a clown literally, and you listen to some pastors. Listen, sometimes I listen to some pastors. I'm gonna tell you, I've seen clips of pastors that it make me burst out laughing because the clown show is so is so reeking and shrieking that you gotta laugh. And people believe that stuff. It's like people going to church and my man waving his hand and the people falling over, and that you go to church for that. Like, this is a clown show. This is a good show though. I mean, it's the best show on earth. I've been to church. I've been invited to churches. I've been to churches that are even Adventist, and the pastor is on fine form. Nothing beat that entertainment. Church is probably the most entertainment thing, and you get singing also, so that's make it even better. So those who love it and make it a lie. Some people love a lie. You talk them truth, they get offended, and it don't have no vibe to them. But you tell them a lie, they come, man, they come happy. Exodus 20, verse 16 again, we read from yesterday. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. And so that's what it is. I think ultimately, in this type of situation, they bear false witness against the Bible, against the Constitution. And we see that the end result is they fall into a ditch. Again, I want to read to you, just to make the context here, Deuteronomy 28, verse 28 and 29. Notice here, the Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. So when you go to a certain part of iniquity, sin, and destruction follows. And it doesn't matter that you really believe, because, people, we talk about sincerity. You can be sincerely wrong. And when you're sincerely wrong, it doesn't mean that the punishment don't come. See, that's often we don't talk about that next step. You're going on a path of death and destruction, and you're falling a clown. You're going to fall into the ditch. Christ didn't say, well, there's no mercy for you when you fall into the ditch. Your hope is that you don't die when you fall into the ditch. How many people have been led by clowns and they drink the Kool-Aid literally? And it might not be Kool-Aid, but it might be some, I don't know, rat poison, or what other things sometimes women give their husband, like coolant, fluid, or whatever it is, to kill them. You might drink it and you might not live. And so many people go in that environment. I think David Koresh was one of the clowns, wicked and sinful, pure sin. But the people say he was a prophet. I'm like, how do they believe this type of stuff? The guy's immoral, you know, just fornicate, just doing everything that the Bible did not do. But I know how these people get involved with this thing, because I've worshiped with people who the pastor, the leader could be doing the most wicked thing and they're supporting. Think about how many times you have a presidential candidate, you have a congressional candidate, a senatorial candidate, and the person is just corrupt, and they still vote for the person because the person knows to put on a good show. They know to say the right things, and people vote and say, well, at least, at least what? At least how? It's just, you better not vote, man. What? You're going to support evil. Oh, because he's going to do this. How can evil do anything good? Oh, like, don't they learn? Don't history furnish us with so many results of the followers of these fanatical, crazy people or actors that it go bad for the leaders? So notice again, I read verse Deuteronomy 20:28 and verse 29 also. The Lord shall smite thee. So when you smite something, you hit it hard with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. So if you can see these things, it's always fascinating when people can get offended by the obvious truth.
It's all around them and they can't see. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, oh man. So after a while, you lose your mind, and it gets smitten. And thou shalt grow up at noonday. Notice, as the blind grow up in darkness. So you're not in darkness. You're just you just come to a point where your mind is just so messed up because you sit there and listen to all that dumbness all the time. No morality, no justice, no judgment. And every week, faithfully, listen to that madness. You'd be like, wow. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. Because you see, there's going to be failure. And I'm going to explain to you why in a second. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Now, this is what I come here for. As again, my topic is the problem with taking a clown show seriously. Now, what's the problem when you take a clown show seriously? Because you see a clown show, you're supposed to be like ha 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 and laugh. Oh, it's so cute, the clown. But you don't take that seriously. But there's adults now who take the kids to the three-ring circus. It's a three-ring circus. It's supposed to be just all kind of madness going on that you can't even pay attention. But you don't go, in politics and in religion, you don't go to a three-ring circus as an adult. That's what you take your kids to. And I've seen some churches. I'll be honest, it's the best three-ring circus, the best musician, the best preacher, the best. But you're supposed to go to a three-ring circus and say, "This is a clown show. I'm here for entertainment. This is not serious." But there's people who take that stuff seriously, and the problem with taking it seriously is like you're a believer. You're not. It's difficult because how do you, and I've seen people in that type of situation and be like, "This is just for entertainment." You don't take rappers and actors seriously. Why would you take pastors that are clowns seriously? Or a politician that is a clown seriously? You don't take them seriously. Well, people take them seriously and literally vote for them and think they're representing them. And they're probably representing them because the people are blind and the politicians are blind and the politicians are leading the people into the ditch. The pastor is blind and the people are blind and the people are going to be led into the ditch. So Christ says now in Matthew 23, verse 14 and 15, and then 25 and 30. In verse 14 of Matthew 23, Christ says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." So again, a hypocrite is an actor. It's an act. So he said, "Woe to the actors, the clowns, you clowns." See, you can see why the Pharisees would be offended. And today, if you look at the Pharisees in the church, they will be offended because they're clowns and they're leading the people down into the pit. But the people believe that this is a serious act. And it's not. It's an act, not serious. They're not serious. It's supposed to laugh. Like you're supposed to go to church and while they're preaching, you're supposed to be laughing and thinking that's entertaining. Because these clowns are not fooling me. Say, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees." The scribes are the theologians in our time. That's how I equate it. "For ye devour widows' house, and for pretense make long prayer. Therefore you shall receive the greater damnation." So if these hypocrites are receiving the greater damnation, that means that when God's gonna punish, He's gonna punish, and when He's messing on people on the earth before there's hell, the hypocrites, the Pharisees, what happened to the widow? Because greater mean they're lesser. You get that? I can't do too much pause because I'm on audio too, so I'm still here with you. So think about that, right? I'll read it again to you, and I want to see if you catch that. Greater. That means somebody else is getting messed up also. Because remember, the people blind, I may read that first. The blind is the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the Pharisees and the scribes. Most of the time Christ doesn't talk about the Sadducees because it's obvious the liberals are out for lunch. I mean, just think about it. The liberals, the Sadducees, why even talk about them? These are people that don't even really believe in anything supernatural and stuff like that. So, so if you hear me here in the morning or in our church or wherever, and I'm really talking about the Sadducees and the scribes and, no, sorry, the Pharisees and the scribes or the conservatives, there's a reason why I do that because I follow Jesus. And I'm trying to understand his mindset, right? That's why we follow Jesus, the master teacher. Why? Most of the time, what's the point of talking about sodomites? It is their passing, glancing comment, because obviously they're out for lunch. It doesn't take a rocket science to see that. The person that's harder to see is the person that has the clown, the makeup and the clown hat and the hair and the shoes, and they're full in garb. And they really do the act real well. And you really think they're happy. That's what I'm talking with a clown. You don't really know that they're drunks or on drugs. So that's where the problem comes in, right? The problem is not the clowns that, the person that you easily can pick out that said, this person is out for lunch. Come on. It's the person that has the program, the policy, the speech, everything is so well worked out. That's why I think a lot of time lawyers become politicians, because they really know how to use words, right? They're wordsmiths. Other people work with metal or they work with wood. A lawyer work with words. And so the better they get is the better they can get into politics, and they know to say stuff that might sound very good. But if you really analyze it and pick it apart, you realize, oh, this clown is very good at what he does. He's just still a clown. So the conservatives pose a bigger riddle, because they say we use the Bible, we stand for Constitution, we anti-abortion, so you say, oh, okay, they sound like they have some morality, but the what you call them, the Sadducees, oh man, they're out for lunch. You read the Bible real quick. The Bible really does dispatch them real quick. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and stuff. They're just like, they don't believe in the Spirit. They don't believe in miracles. They don't believe in much. They're jokers, and we move on. So same thing in the church, same thing in secular life. Liberals are just like, you just know they're clowns. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' house. So does the widow lose their house? Does the widow gonna get punished for following these clowns? I would say if you read this and you follow life, you see that the widows get devoured and their house get devoured. I've known people this happen to, literally. They follow these preachers and they will donate, even take their house and put on the market. I mean, on a mortgage, and then give the money to the pastor. And then the pastor gone to Tahiti on vacation while the widow is going homeless. And then the widows listen to the stupidity, so the widow now losing their way and going into blindness, into outer darkness. So the widow is getting beaten up. And the Lord loves the widow. But if the widow is dummy and follow these dummy pastors, they're going to get their punishment. It's just the pastor get the greater punishment. But I've seen people, they didn't get no rescue. And you couldn't talk to them because they believe that they're Anna or one of these figures that are righteous and waiting on the Lord in the temple. And why they waiting on the Lord? They just giving the money to the preachers and stuff like that. And then these preachers in these churches that preach prosperity gospel, they tell you up front, we love money. And they're devouring widows' houses. I seen in the Catholic Church, they just devour widows' houses. They like the masses of it. But here's the thing. I remember when I was younger, I would see buses from New York picking up the old widows, these old widows, packing them in the bus and sending them to Atlantic City so that they can go gamble at the different casino, including Trump Casino, that I think is not bankrupt. Because, these businesses are cursed business. So so it's in all kind of realm you can devour the widows' houses for pretense and for prayer in a religious context. Because they're going to donate because we're going to save America. And then that's a political context. So both are going into the ditch. But the greater drop is going to be the first person, because it's just like, say, for instance, if the blind drop into the ditch and it's the Pharisees, the conservative leader. Sadducees definitely probably in the ditch already with AIDS and all kind of stuff. But say he drop into the ditch. Then comes now the followers, like first thing the widows, and drop on him. So he going to be at the bottom of the ditch and everybody start falling on him. So he getting the greater beatdown. But it doesn't mean that the widow is not being taken out. So that's the problem with taking a clown serious, because it's not going to end well. But people love their clown and get offended if you speak out against their clowns. And so that's where the problem comes in. So I read again for you the word of Jesus Christ. People say, we need to hear more about Jesus. So let me share with you about Jesus here. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' house. So the widow loses house, houses, plural, widows' houses, for pretense and make long prayer. So they're pretending, they're the pretenders, they're clowns. But therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. So as I say, a child is supposed to think the clown is happy. But you as an adult, you know the clown is just doing a job. A clown is just a clown. But the sad part about it is that people go for a clown show and they take the clown serious. And they become religious, fervent followers of clowns. And these people don't take really, they take the Bible serious, but these people follow them. Notice in verse 15, Christ says, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, right? You're actors, you're pretenders. For you compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he is made, you make him twofold more a child of hell than yourself. So you say, man, but they're doing great evangelism. What are they preaching? No morality, no judgment, no justice. But they're preaching doctrines, Lord, and they're baptizing people by the boatload. You know, the clown that died recently, or the pretender, the hypocrite that died recently, I was talking to one of his followers, and he said sometime he will baptize all 400 people. And I said, wow, really? 400 at a time? Yeah, the clown show was the best, one of the best show on earth. And so what happened? He said, like, within a year, you wouldn't find one person in the church. Not one? He said, no. I said, that's fascinating. So you baptized 400. Yeah. And a year later, not even one. What was they being teach? Oh, just doctrines and stuff. Something about prophecy. You don't even know what is about prophecy they preach. And the show is so good that people are like, I'll follow the Lord wheresoever he goeth, baptize me in the name of the Lord, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. And then what happened a year later? Oh, they're not in the church. That's terrible. No staying power. Because it's an act. And when the act leave town, the people go back to their life. But notice here, makes them twice. Go see and land, do evangelistic program, do whatever. Make them twice the son of Satan. Person worse than the Pharisee. And you can imagine the person preaching and the people listen to them preach and become worse. You know, Ellen G. White talks about this back in her time, that the missionaries would go abroad and they'll bring the Bible, but they'll bring also about alcohol, all kind of immorality, and make the people worse. You can imagine. You're going to preach to people, you make them worse. And you don't forget that this is in politics also. Because in politics, almost everywhere you see that they go with democracy, war breaks out. Democracy against authority. Pew, 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 pew. Shoot. Gunshot. People dying by the millions. You know, you look at it. People by the millions. You say, man, these politicians are like the three horsemen of Revelation, or three of the horsemen. You know, death and famine and pestilence. And they go and it's just civil war and fighting. As I mentioned yesterday, how can everybody, almost everybody, every cool leader in Africa is trained in America? How is that possible? What's going on there? They say, oh no, it's a coincidence, Lloyd. Oh man, there's just too much coincidence in this life. It seems like that's what they train for. So it is the same idea. They come past sea and land, and you say, I thought this was democracy. Why they about coup? And somebody be like, it's just, it's the Africans is the problem. Like, really? It's not a training? Notice here, verse 25, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you may clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within are full of extortion and excess. Who is paying for that excess? Who's paying for that extortion? Who is being extorted? Who? Right? And that's the problem. So you see these people, listen, that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, I'll follow what you need to follow. I do what I have to do. People like are proud, I belong to whatever. Man, you keep belonging to your true church. Because who's being extorted? And who's paying for that excess? The widows again? The followers? The blind that are following the blind? And you don't see that that's an act? How can you have somebody preaching the Bible And all they preach is Ephesians, Galatians, Colossians. And they have no morality. They anti-doing, the anti-commandment, the anti-believing, really. And you following that? And you're proud of that? So excess and extortion. Who's being extorted? Who's being extorted? Is it a sermon you're getting or you're being extorted? Verse 33. 33 says, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? So you watch the theologians and these preachers and leaders, you'll be like, oh, it's a bunch of vipers. And that's why you can hear. I remember years back when I heard a one clip, the New York conference just dropped 26 pastors. I'm like, what is going on? See, but at that time, I didn't understand what was going on, that they were closing churches and that the cemetery or the seminary that they go to was teaching them all this stuff about no works, no strive, antichrist, the antichrist teaching. You can't strive. If you strive, they say you're trying to work your way to heaven. So I said, but Jesus tell me to strive. They said they're crazy. Jesus tell me to strive, and they'll say, oh, no, you can't do that because that would be against. And they'll attack you. I've been attacked so much that, I decided I'm out. I'm not with these clowns. These people are clowns. You can't strive. Oh, no, you can't strive. So now they've created a bunch of incel in the society because all you hear from these preachers, the Lord is going to bless you. The Lord's going to prosper you. Your best days are ahead of you. You're just going to have grace-oriented ministry. And they've created a bunch of no-strive incels. They're not going to make no effort because they've listened to the clown and they fall into the ditch. And this becomes part of our current events narrative. That when you think about it, whether you're in a political realm, a religious realm, if you listen to these people, it's always about the vanilla ice cream lifestyle, about cotton candy, burgers and ice cream, fast food. Nothing is ever slow. Nothing is ever worked for. Everything is grace, God's grace, marvelous grace. And what it does, it creates a bunch of incels. You listen to them, you'll never strive. You'll never make effort because they tell you, they ram it into your head, these clowns, that striving is antichrist. Commandment is antichrist. You don't sweat. It's fast food. It's everything you can't chew anymore because chewing is against God. So your mandible start going weak, or the muscles in your mandible or in your jaw. And this is what they've taught this church. So the church now just start closing. And they just start firing these pastors. And it's actually fit. Because if the blind need the blind, then the boy's gonna fall in pit. So you say, okay, they fired 26 pastors at one clip. How many years ago? What happened to the members? If the blind need the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Because the clowns, if the people who like to see clowns, as they tie balloons and stuff like that, I've seen that looks so cute. I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I should learn. But if they tie the balloons and do all of that, and it's so nice, but you're following a clown and you're going to get the results of following the clown. That's why there's a problem with taking a clown serious. Because you should go to the clown, you go to church, say on Saturday, and you sit there watching the clown and say, that was a good show. And then you knock yourself in the head and say, okay, that's a clown show, don't take it serious. But people take this stuff serious and then they end in the ditch. And so if you say, wait a minute, if they find all these pastors, and since then there's so many churches that have closed because you have a clown show. And you watching, and people watch that clown and thinking that's serious. So that's why I say when these clowns either shoot themselves in the head or they die or whatever, and they get fired, and he said, what happened to the clowns? The clowns' followers. They too gone to hell. That's why there's so many. Think about the areas that tell you not to strive. That if you dare talk about the commandment, you're working. If you talk about striving, what Christ teaches us to teach and to follow, you're going to hell because you're working your way to heaven. Think about the areas that are more believe in those preachings are the here that have the biggest drug epidemic and the most poverty and the most trailer parks and ghettos and stuff like that. Think about it. Those preaching really whip the followers. The blind in the ditch and the blind over there following them, and they think that's part of the American narrative because you go to those places. Oh no, grace, 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 grace. They even sing about grace so much. I love those songs though, but at least I don't take them too serious. I just say that's good. We have grace. God give us grace, but we have to make an effort. It's good to exercise. It's good to try to make money. Go to work. Not get up every day and be on drugs. And what do you think? The drugs, fentanyl, meth is God's grace. So again, ye serpent, ye generation of vipers, because when they bite the people, they poison them. How can you escape the damnation of hell? And that's the question. And so now you find that they can't even find pastors in the church. And the people who listen to them have almost wiped out the church. In North America especially, you find it's like you go to churches and they say, oh, this used to be a church that was 100% white Americans. And the pastor was preaching grace, grace, grace. And you say, what happened to the church? Oh, no. Now there's probably 5 people. I'd be like, wow, that's success. Sound like success to me, right? What happened? Because it's not because of the skin color. It's because they sat there and listened to these nice, sweet sermons that telling them that God's grace and God's blessing is upon them and that their best days are ahead of them and that they're moving forward into perdition. And that's basically what happened. But they believed it. And you'd be like, how can you believe that in this world? In this world, there's no pain, no pain, no gain. Oh, no, brother, that's working way to heaven. And so after a while, I realized they like that clown show and they'll attack you because that's what it is. So I realized, I need to just get away from these people because the wrath of God is just going to pour out against them. They're just being silly. But they take the clown show serious. And that's my point here. It's like, how can you take these clowns serious? Person talking to you. And listen, the best time to listen to somebody talking that clown show is when you're in a building that is the best climate control. The better the climate control, you can hear it in the speakers. And good climate control, the seats are comfortable. It feels like heaven. And you hear the pastor preaching and he's telling you that your best days are ahead of you and that God's grace, I'm going to preach to you from Ephesians and Galatians. And it just feels like, yes, we've received God's grace. This church feels good. It sounds good. The sound system is on point. And this pastors tell me that good times are ahead. And you even forget that you have a family member probably you're going to have to visit this evening in the hospital because they're about to die. And you have another family member dying of drug overdose or on drugs. And you just don't remember because you think, yeah, we in the kingdom of grace, God's grace. And you're like, and then you realize, wait a minute, this is finding me to sleep here. Aren't we supposed to be in the last days? Aren't things supposed to get worse? Aren't the Sodomites supposed to be taken over? Because God says it's going to be like this in the time of the end. Aren't we supposed to be like Lot? And then it's supposed to be like Noah, where people are going to be doing genetic engineering. Just think about that. Genetic engineering. And you're the genetic engineering food and people eating the food. This is amazing. The genetic engineering vaccine for people and people take the vaccine. I'm like, aren't you supposed to know? Didn't your pastor, didn't your clown tell you that that's what's supposed to be in the last days? And, people look at you like you being, I'm saying something fanatical. Like, didn't you get the memo? Noah, Lot. The children are supposed to turn out like you can't tell if they're male or female. I remember this thing as a current event, and I read my last text, second to last text, that there's a girl, I don't know her name, but she's supposed to be some swimmer. And she lost to a guy who was actually he's saying he's female, but he's a guy, but he swim against her and he win her. And then I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, is she a female? Or is she like, I'm confused. Is any of these people females? Or everybody in the swim? This is how confusing it is. That you even see a female now, you start to scratch your head. You see why I was told by a preacher that I guess he believes why the Lord had to send the animals in 7 by 7. The Lord had to send the animal because the antediluvian had messed with the animals so much that only the Lord would know what really was a true lion or a tiger or stuff like that. Is that true? So that would be fascinating. That only Lord would know what would be a true genetically pure animal because the crossbreeding was so much. So do we have to do DNA tests to get, like if your child is growing up, right? This is where we at. Where if your child is growing up and your child is soon to be married, would you tell your child, listen, certify that that's a male or a female before you get married to the person? Because you can't tell, because they're getting better now. They're getting better. Right? You could walk on the street and if you don't think twice, you're looking at somebody, you can't tell it's a female or a male because the cross dressing and the makeup and the plastic surgeries, it's just the surgeons are getting better. Weird. Second Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 through 7. So this is the problem with a clown show. You cannot take a clown show. Those clowns walking. Listen, the clowns nowadays just basically can tattoo the red nose on their face. It's amazing that they permanently walk around with a smile on their face, a tattooed smile. You know, it's like a joker. You just kind of slit his mouth and make it look like he's smiling. So 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 through 7. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Why? For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parent, unthankful, unholy, without natural affections, truth breakers, false accusers, incontinent, that means they have no self-control. They just lost control of themselves. Fierce, so that's why they'll go into a school and shoot the school up. Despisers of those that are good. That's why I have to remove myself from the mainline church. Yeah, I realize these people hate people who don't follow their wicked ways. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Whee! It's fun. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such you have to turn away. You just turn away from these wicked people. All right, because only a punishment coming. Fire will burn. For of this sort are they which creep into houses, plural, and lead captive silly women, laden with sins, those widows again, led away with diverse lust. So you see that almost all the time you see these kind of false political leaders, false religious leaders, they just have a gaggle of women being fooled, you know, raping them and even sodomizing them and all kind of weird stuff. They do. It's strange. So of this sort they lead into captivity. Lead captive to captivating silly women. As we have these people, they have clown shows and have all these women, silly women and silly men. Could have all of the silly men following them. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of truth. So you wonder, is it the silly men that can't come to the knowledge of truth, or is it the leaders can't come to the knowledge of truth, or is it the people? But this is what it is. So they devour widow's house with pretense and prayer. Here, Paul says to Timothy that is these silly people with women that they lead captive. And some of them, because we live in a Sadducees type mindset, these homosexuals, they lead sometimes silly men, effeminate men, weak men into truth. And so when you're in a female-dominated church and you have these feminized men, you don't survive. You're very out of place if you're into having honor and dignity, respect. Can't survive. So no morality. So we read the close if we have time. Revelation 18 verse 1 onwards says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, not an effeminate voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every false spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. And this is what's filled up the church, and that's what created the clown show, but it's pure destruction. For all the nations have drank of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, plural, and that you receive not of her plagues, plural. And that's why we say, as we see this thing coming, it's going to be more beat down, more plagues, pestilence, more natural disasters, because as they break out and they men turn women and women turn men, and that the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the scribes, they keep ripping off widows. God punished them for that. Widows are going to lose their shirt also, but God will punish them. The greater punishment come for that. So as I said to you here, do not take a clown show serious. You must know that when these people preaching, whether it be in politics or in religion, and they're preaching and there's no morality, there's no judgment, there's no justice, understand it's a clown show and it's going to end bad. Don't follow them because you can get punished also. You come out of that stuff. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for your word in this day. Pray that you may be with us and bless us, dear Lord, as we walk humbly before thee. And may you truly, dear Lord, have us that we might be true and honest to all people, especially those that are widows, fatherless, and strangers. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Well, thanks to be with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow, where we should talk about wisdom for living. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.